Welcome to Capital Catch-Up. We're diving straight into the legislative docket today, starting with a massive funding package moving through the lower chamber. House Resolution 7744, the Department of Homeland Security Appropriations Act for 2026.
That's right, Victor. And before a major appropriations bill like this can even get a full floor vote, it has to go through the House Rules Committee. That brings us to House Resolution 1095, which is what we call a rule bill. For our listeners who might not be familiar, a rule bill essentially sets the terms of debate. It dictates how much time lawmakers have to discuss the main bill and whether any amendments can be offered. Without House Resolution 1095 passing first, the actual DHS funding bill can't move forward.
Exactly. And the DHS budget impacts everyday Americans profoundly. It dictates funding for everything from disaster relief via FEMA to border security and cyber defense. Tied closely to this broader conversation about Homeland Security is House Resolution 7640, the Shutdown Sanctuary Policies Act.
This bill would restrict federal funding to states or municipalities that limit cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. It's a highly debated issue. Proponents of the bill argue that local federal cooperation is essential for public safety and the rule of law. On the other hand, opponents maintain that sanctuary policies are crucial for community safety, arguing that undocumented residents are less likely to report crimes to local police if they fear deportation.
Moving from domestic security to foreign affairs, the House is also considering House Resolution 1099, a measure reaffirming that Iran remains the largest state sponsor of terrorism. Historically speaking, the U.S. first designated Iran as a state sponsor of terrorism back in 1984. This resolution doesn't necessarily change existing law, but it signals a unified congressional stance on U.S.-Iran relations, which could influence future sanctions or diplomatic strategies.
Let's shift our focus domestically, specifically to legislation impacting children, teens, and education. Senate Bill 836, the Children and Teens Online Privacy Protection Act, is making waves. We haven't seen a major update to online privacy laws for minors since COPPA was passed back in 1998, well before the era of smartphones and modern social media.
It's a massive jump. This bill would extend privacy protections to teenagers up to age 16 and ban targeted advertising to minors. For everyday parents, this could fundamentally change how their kids interact with apps, forcing tech companies to design platforms with default privacy settings.
And on the education front, we're seeing several different approaches to how we support students. First, there's House Resolution 6392, the Homeschool Graduation Recognition Act. This aims to ensure that homeschool diplomas are recognized equally to traditional high school diplomas by federal agencies, particularly for employment and federal benefits.
Conversely, we have House Resolution 7570, the Reinvest in Public Schools Act of 2026. This focuses on funneling federal resources directly into traditional public education infrastructure and teacher support. It really highlights an ongoing policy debate over federal education priorities, whether to direct resources primarily towards traditional public school systems or to expand federal recognition and support for alternative, parent-led schooling models. Both sides are deeply passionate about what's best for students.
We also can't overlook House Resolution 6472, the Territorial Student Access to Higher Education Act. Historically, students in U.S. territories like Puerto Rico or Guam face unique financial barriers when seeking higher education on the mainland. This bill aims to level the playing field, making college affordability a reality for students from those territories.
Speaking of leveling the playing field, there are a few key bills targeting financial and property rights for specific demographics. Let's look at Senate Bill 2074, the Service Members Credit Monitoring Enhancement Act. When members of the military deploy or frequently relocate, their finances can be vulnerable to identity theft or credit hits. This bill enhances free credit monitoring services for active duty personnel, offering them peace of mind while they serve.
Then there's Senate Bill 723, the Tribal Trust Land Homeownership Act of 2025. This is a fascinating piece of legislation with deep historical roots. Because tribal trust lands are technically held by the federal government, Native Americans living on these lands often face a labyrinth of bureaucratic red tape just to get a standard mortgage. This bill aims to streamline the federal appraisal and approval process, directly removing barriers to homeownership and wealth building in tribal communities.
And for the broader economy, Senate Bill 3977, the Bankruptcy Threshold Adjustment Act of 2026, is on the docket. During the pandemic, Congress raised the debt threshold for small businesses to qualify for Chapter 11 reorganization, making it easier for mom-and-pop shops to restructure rather than liquidate. This bill adjusts and extends those thresholds, which could be a lifeline for small businesses navigating current economic pressures.
Let's round out today's catch-up with infrastructure and public health. House Resolution 5419, the Enhancing Administrative Reviews for Broadband Deployment Act, aims to cut through the permitting red tape that slows down internet expansion. For rural Americans still stuck with dial-up speeds, this could expedite the arrival of high-speed broadband.
We're also seeing a push for supply chain independence with House Resolution 755, the Critical Mineral Consistency Act of 2025. By unifying how federal agencies define critical minerals, the government hopes to streamline domestic mining operations for things like lithium and cobalt, materials essential for everything from your smartphone battery to national defense systems.
On the public health front, we have a very innovative approach to medicine in House Resolution 7352, the PASTEUR Act of 2026. This addresses the growing crisis of antimicrobial resistance. Right now, pharmaceutical companies don't make much money creating new antibiotics because doctors use them as a last resort. The PASTEUR Act would create a subscription-style model where the government pays for access to novel antibiotics, giving companies the financial incentive to develop them before a superbug crisis hits.
Finally, for the history buffs, House Resolution 7618, the American Battlefield Protection Program Amendments Act of 2026, reauthorizes and expands grants to preserve historical battlegrounds. It ensures that sites critical to understanding American history aren't lost to commercial development.
That covers our deep dive for today. In the coming days, listeners should definitely watch for the House Rules Committee's final vote on the DHS funding rule, as well as floor debates on sanctuary policy restrictions. Additionally, keep an eye on the Senate floor for potential movement on the Children's Online Privacy Bill, which has been gathering bipartisan momentum.
Thanks for tuning in to Capital Catch-Up. We'll be back next time to break down what's moving, what's stalling, and what it all means for you.